Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves and each other and the world. It is so good to be together. And if Zoom worship is new to you and you don't quite feel together yet, stick with it. It's amazing how together we all feel after a little while. For example, we can't go around and say hello and hug each other and shake hands, but we are going to turn on our audio. Everybody unmute for just a moment so we can say hi and welcome. And I'm going to give myself a hug because, boy, it's just important to feel it. So go ahead and hug yourself as well. Say hi.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Good morning.
Welcome, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh,
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Here we are together, joined in ways we never even knew until now, maybe. Joined to one another and the whole world by the beings who need us and whom we need. We are joined together, and may that connection bring us light and warmth. With our centering words each week, we draw on one of the sources of our living tradition, and today's words come from the experience of church member Sarah Kostka. This is Sarah speaking. I do not remember many specific things from church before middle school, but that does not matter because some parts of church were ingrained in my brain. Bass Lake, the Maypole, Easter egg hunt, Halloween parade, Judean village, and even just getting hot chocolate after class or playing on the playground were important to me. To be honest, a lot of stuff was associated with getting sweet treats, but that's what kept me wanting to come until I started learning some pretty valuable stuff during middle school. In middle school, I went to the eco-justice class for 1 year or so and the neighboring faiths class for 1 year or so because each kid got to choose which one to do. Eco-justice class, where we built and maintained a composter, learned about pollution, and played with matches, allowed me to have a comfortable relationship with nature. And neighboring faiths taught me not only about different religions, but that there are many welcoming communities that I could become a part of. But I choose this church. This is not just because my parents want me to come, but because here's the place that I have been reaffirmed and informed in so many ways. So I am taught to be comfortable with myself and with others as I am talking to other kids my age, reading a picture book to preschoolers, or giving a reflection in this wonderful, whether physical or digital, place. Thank you, Sarah Kostka, for those words. Let us follow the sound of the bell into silence and arrive fully in this sacred time and community that we create through being present together.
I got a homework assignment from Amy. It was, if someone asked you to suggest 3 symbols that are important to you, what 3 would you name? I was coming up a little blank, and she then suggested that I might look around the house for things that were important to me. Oh, so 3 sacred things. I learned in Episcopalian confirmation class that a sacrament is an outward and physical sign of an inward and spiritual grace. In other words, a symbol, a tangible manifestation of something important. First, my wedding ring. Such a simple thing and so important. A gold band to symbolize a precious human bond. Even the words band and bond have the same source. Enough said. Second, a print of my favorite Escher image, waterfall. I love this image for what it says to engineers. It's constructed of two impossible triangles, a motif Escher used many places, but here, the paradoxical triangles become a perpetual motion machine, the endlessly descending water creating power to run a mill. It charms my puzzle brain and reminds me that engineers must strive for the impossible and also cannot achieve it. This picture has hung in my office at almost every job I've ever held. And on March 6th, when Apple sent us home, I packed up my computer, looked at the picture, and brought it home to hang over my new, hopefully temporary, workplace. It was important. Third, a cookbook. Oh man, there is a lot packed into that cookbook. Hillhouse is my maiden name. My sister Evelyn collected family recipes and wrote the first edition in 1986. Every descendant gets a new copy when they head off to college, and they're thrilled to get it. Funny tasting salad was an extremely weird and hideous thing made with lime jello, mayonnaise, pecans, and horseradish, among other things. Daddy loved it. The recipe came from his mother, and it was made and served on all special family occasions. Daddy's long gone, and no one makes it regularly anymore, but the recipe is still a family treasure. But there are recipes that everyone makes all the time. In everyone's first copy, the biscuit page was the first one to fall out. In subsequent editions, that recipe was printed on the laminated back cover for easy access. So many stories, so many layers of meaning. Family connections, of course, to my parents, my siblings, and all their descendants. The capturing and carrying on of important traditions and knowledge. And at an even deeper level, the centrality of food for all of us, particularly when prepared together and shared in family and community. A sacrament to meditate upon in this difficult time.
Thank you, Jane. A Unitarian Universalist minister named Johanna Nichols has a spiritual practice that she shared in a book called Everyday Spiritual Practice. She keeps an altar. She writes, "I have always been a collector of sacred objects. For many years, my rocks and feathers and cherished photos sat in various corners of homes I've lived in, on my dresser, on a mantle, a bookshelf, and windowsills. These objects," as she says, "are more than mementos, more than pretty things. They are sacred." When we allow ordinary things to speak to us, they speak in symbols. So Reverend Nichols writes, "When I moved from my home in Vermont to California to go to seminary, two white-veined black rocks common to Lake Champlain traveled with me. There I placed them on my windowsill, facing the San Francisco Bay. A friend from home came to visit. After she left, I discovered that she had rearranged the rocks, placing the smaller of the two on the bigger one. They now looked like a seal perched on a rock. Suddenly, my whole perspective of leaving home changed. If my Vermont rocks could adapt to California, so could I. Today, these two sacred black rocks sit upon my home altar." Also on her home altar, a candle representing, in her words, the center, the transcendent and immanent, Great Spirit and Mother Earth, the goddess. She has there red New Mexico dirt in a clay pot, from a time that she spent there reflecting on how this desert earth was once the floor of an ocean, she said, mindful of the ancient feet that had once trod this way. In New Mexico, she observed, there is no mercy to the geography. To survive in the desert, you must pay attention. On her altar is a fossilized sand dollar, such as one that Bruce shared in that beautiful video. A river rock in water in a small ceramic bowl made by her daughter. Those black Vermont rocks, of course. And above the altar hang photographs and paintings of special places and handmade symbols of her spiritual journey. Below it, she keeps her journal for the time that she spends by her altar in contemplation. As I continue on my spiritual journey, Reverend Nichols writes, I add new objects that are sacred to me and give away others. I tend my altar. So I want to ask you in different words, the same thing that I asked Jane. What would go onto your altar? What do you want your soul to remember? And what are some things that would be good reminders or are already good reminders? Explanations may go crashing and shouting through the woods, but symbols sit quietly. Our souls respond to them. They're drawn to them. Several months ago, I was reflecting on an upcoming anniversary, April 30th, which will be the 20th anniversary of my ordination to the ministry. I wanted to mark it in some special way, and I decided that I would find an artist who works in fabric and commission a stole to add to my small and precious collection. Now, there are lots of fabric artists who specifically make stoles and other vestments for clergy, but I looked more broadly, and the search took me to the website of Diane Savona, whose work was not only visually stunning and beautifully crafted, but engaged a lot of issues that are important to me. You know how sometimes you read a book or you see a piece of art or you hear a piece of music or see a dance and suddenly you feel like even though you don't know the person who created those things, you've met a kindred spirit. That's how I felt. When I got up the courage to write to her and propose a commission, she accepted right away. As you can see, here's the stole, and I'll give you a closer up view as we go on. She began what turned out to be a very fulfilling collaboration with a simple question. Amy, what sort of images mean the most to you? Wow, what a great question, which is why I asked you the same thing. Here we all are on our own, cut off from so many of the cultural repositories of symbols like museums and monuments, concert halls, libraries, and of course, places of worship. Yet, we have ourselves. We have the things we wear, the things we carry. We might have pictures taped to the walls and little items kept on shelves. Like Jane, you probably have some things around you that are symbolic of something really important to you. They speak the language of the soul. Here, I'll add my examples to hers by telling you what I told Diane Savona. The first image I told her about was spirals. And these are essentially my personal yin yang, and you can see how she worked one into the overall pattern here. I say they're like yin yang because they're a reminder of balance for me. I know I've preached about this before, the way that spirals combine two kinds of motion. They have a forward motion in the way they move outward, or in the case of a DNA kind of helix, they move onward. And they also have a cyclical, repetitive motion in the way they circle around. In a spiral, one comes around again and again to the same place, but not quite the same place. Something has changed. And I think that's how life is. I try to communicate that kind of balance here at church by affirming the importance of both stillness and progress, tradition and change, being and becoming. I told her how important symbols of decay and erosion were to me, how I noticed them in nature. I find erosion very beautiful for the way it reveals time and history. And she's done that here with, she found this sort of background of the way sand is shaped by water as water runs over it, and lots of background images of brick and stone walls, and the way the stones are worn away by time and water and wind and people's hands even. There's a tension between this beauty that I see here and the way our culture values, I would say overvalues, youth and novelty, anything that's new. A big part of my ministry is helping people to perceive the beauty in the ordinary or the despised. So I thought, well, that's something that should go on my stole. And I told her that seeds and stones are very meaningful to me. I'm moved by how closely many seeds resemble stones. I find it intriguing. There's really so little difference between them as you look at the outside, and yet there's all the difference in the world. And then there's the way that seeds have to split open, essentially die in one form in order to become more than a stone and actually grow. So she found so many seeds, and she shared just dozens and dozens of kinds of seeds with me. And sometimes we included the seeds because they have some other layer of meaning. Like this one she found that was just perfect for this window in a wall is a poppy seed. It's not actually a California poppy, but still it's another kind of poppy. And I said, oh, well, I'm a California girl, so we need to share that. And here's a seed that she embroidered beautifully, goes on the back. Just looks like it's in the act of bursting open. And lots of seeds here that are sprouting. And then some that look more like, they're still kind of in their stone phase. These look like little stones, really, but they're another kind of seed. I don't know quite what, all about what is so meaningful to me about this image of the seed, especially the seed in the act of sprouting, but it just keeps popping up in my own artwork, even when I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's kind of a cliche. I'm not done with it. It's not done with me. There's something there about the way that life and death are intertwined that keeps troubling me and inspiring me, especially as I get older and I try to come to terms with the reality that I'm going to die one day. Also, a dear and early memory of mine is planting the family garden with my dad, and I always got to plant the beans, which are great for kids to plant because they're satisfyingly fast and visible in their process. And once the shoots come up, you can often see the remnants of the seeds still stuck to the first shoot as it emerges from the crack in the ground. I feel like she's, Diane captured that here. So like Jane, having my family and my early memories in this stole is important to me. And then the last image I told her about was the burning bush. Now, the burning bush is, of course, an image from my cradle religion of Judaism. But here's something that didn't even occur to me until I started writing about it for Diane. It was actually the logo of, I think, conservative Judaism or some institution of conservative Judaism as I was growing up. I had a poster that had this burning bush symbol on it in my room when I was a kid. It was that logo with the accompanying phrase in Hebrew and English, and the bush was not consumed. And it became an important image for me some years ago as I was grappling with this question: how to stay present to people at the most painful, intense moments of their lives and not get so overwhelmed by the pain and loss of the moment that I just shrivel up and float away on the breeze. This is, of course, a challenge that doesn't only face people in helping professions, but all of us, as we try to be good friends, engaged citizens in a world that is such a mess sometimes, as we try to be self-aware people, because sometimes just being aware of our own feelings can bring us face to face with things that just seem to threaten to destroy us. So she found an image surrounded it with her embroidery of that makes it look like it's a flame. And yet clearly it's green and growing. As we try to show up for those that we care about when they're going through trials of fire, I've wondered, how do we do it? And the best that I have come up with then or since is that it's right there in the burning bush. It's in the places of pain and risk that we find the strength and solace to withstand the brokenness of the world and even be transformed for the better by it. We are all of us burning bushes, aflame and not consumed. So that's here too. Now, I'm putting all of this into words because words are mostly how I operate. But as Diane said, she thinks in symbols, visual symbols. And as we wrote and talked to each other, and she researched hundreds of images and shared them and shaped them, she added so much. I had mentioned that we lived in Oaxaca and gave the eroding stone and brick walls of Oaxaca as one of the examples of erosion that I loved. So Mexico is in here now. And my wife and daughter, if you look closely, she suggested I sent pictures of them, and she worked them in a very beautiful way. There's the subtle suggestion of a rainbow and really subtle suggestion of bees and a water lily leaf. This is what they look like underneath. There we go. Beautiful, which she has emphasized with her sewing, her embroidery. I didn't even get around to the fact that telling her that Buddhism was important to me, but here's the lotus leaf. And then roots finding their way through brick and stonework to the sources of life. Come back next week for a lot more about those. So as Jane pointed me to the definition of symbol and sacrament being very similar, the definition of a symbol is a visible sign of something invisible. A visible sign of something invisible. Now, it could be a different kind of sign than a visual one. It could be a word. It could be a tune. It could be a smell. What is that funny tasting salad in Jane's family cookbook? It's not just something to eat. In fact, now it's seldom something to eat at all, which sounds like a good idea to me, because nobody makes it anymore. It's something else. I won't try to reduce it to words. Symbols can be described, but they can't be summed up. They are bigger than the words that try to explain them. And Jane, with her just very gentle, poetic words, found just the way to evoke for us what that cookbook means. So if you go around your house or look in your bag, wherever you accumulate little things, you might find things that are symbolic. And if you're not sure, you'll probably know which ones are symbols because they evoke a story. If you tried to explain to somebody else why you have them, you would hear yourself saying things like, I kept this shell because, and then you would talk about some significant moment. Or this picture is important to my family, and because of the time we did this. And then you know, these are the visible signs of something invisible and very important to you. There's a great designer named William Morris who once advised us, have nothing in your home that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful. At the risk of irritating people like Marie Kondo, I want to add one other possibility. You might have things in your home that you feel to be full of meaning. Symbols are things that are not necessarily important in themselves, but that remind us of what is important to us. Like Jane's marriage and her engineering and her family and the way they nourish each other. So the things that you see around you on your walls or in your pockets, dangling from your ears or tucked into drawers that are neither useful nor necessarily beautiful, maybe they're something else. Maybe they speak the language of the soul. They whisper, they murmur, remember this. Or maybe It's time that's sacred. Altars are spatial symbols, but time and the way we use it can also be full of symbols. Many people say special words when they sit down to dinner or tuck their children into bed. They mark those times as soul time, a moment to give thanks, or to name something they've learned, or to ask a question, or to share what happened to them, or how they're feeling. Maybe your family has a song that you could share at dinner or at bedtime, or a prayer or a joke, something probably that's arisen spontaneously out of your life together. Symbols don't usually get planned. If it hasn't arisen spontaneously yet, or you don't think it has, just listen. It will. You can't go crashing through the woods looking for it, but if you listen and watch, it will emerge. It will find you. So here's a really funny story about how something found me through Diane, through the conversation with Diane, and let me know that it should arrive here on my stole to remind me of some very important things. As I said, I talked to her about walls and the walls of Oaxaca. And so when she was looking for images, one of the things that she looked for online was Oaxaca walls. And then when she shared the images with me, one of the walls she shared, I recognized, I knew it really well. And I recognized it because it has a piece of graffiti on it. It's the wall of a church. And I'm sorry to say, somebody graffitied the church with, in Spanish, the very famous sentence from Marx, from Karl Marx, religion is the opiate of the people. Religion puts people to sleep, kills their pain instead of waking them up. So I knew about this because it was there when we were in Oaxaca, and Joy went by it. We rode by it all the time on the bus, but the first time that Joy ever went by it, that's when she called our attention to it. And she snapped a picture of the graffiti because it's really funny. It says in Spanish, la religión es el opio del pueblo, as I said, the opiate of the people. But the way it's scrawled, at first glance, Joy said she thought maybe it said el apio del pueblo, which means religion is the celery of the people. Not, I think, what the graffiti artist was trying to convey. So of course it became a family joke, the celery of the people. And so when I saw that she'd found this wall, I said, that wall has to be on it. It's here without the graffiti, but I know the wall, the way she manipulated the images, the blue of it came across quite strongly. It's kind of grayish stone wall, and it's the background of this back here. So now I have something at my back. I have this reminder that in my work in a religious community, my job is not to put people to sleep, but to help them be awake. And I also have a joke back here, a moment of fun and something that's made me and my family laugh, because I need laughter, a lot of it every day. So maybe after the service and the budget town hall, you'll want to go looking around for what are the symbols in your house. Maybe you'll even put together an altar, or just notice how maybe the walls of your house are already an altar. Maybe the dinner table is. Maybe next Sunday you'll want to light a chalice of your own at the same moment that I light this one, and blow it out when I blow out this candle, just as we've brought church to all of our homes for this time of quarantine. What will you choose to be the container? Where will you keep it? When will you light it aside from our services? The symbol will let you know. Symbols, I was saying in the first service, are full of magic. I picked a background that I've had to do away with during the second service because I think having too much visual input from my screen was causing audio problems, and I wanted you to be able to hear what I was saying. So you'll have to just close your eyes and imagine that when you open them, I am sitting in front of Hogwarts Castle. Yeah, that's what I was doing. I thought Hogwarts would be a great image for the end of this service, because here I am at home, and in my home, the wizarding world is a symbol that crops up over and over. It means a lot of things. You've heard about some of them in several sermons, or you can catch up with them on our website if you haven't heard them. Most of all, it reminds me that this world is full of magic. And earlier in the service, I had a backdrop, as I see some other people do, of our main hall, of the branch and the banners that hang and are so beautiful there. Because although we're not in our building, we know it isn't just a building. It's memory, it's music, it's the feelings that have split us open like a sprout splitting a seed. It's the ideas that have whirred in our minds in a service or a conversation or a class and spun our lives at speed in a new direction. It's layers of meanings that, like the layers of rock over geological ages, get squeezed and folded and overlap and make new meanings. Just like Hogwarts, it's kind of magical. I think symbols are magical. They're like a whispered spell. They're the twitch of a wand. They make things appear out of nowhere. They might be as ordinary as a gum wrapper, but mean the secret of how to make love last. Because as they talk to us and we talk to them, their deep meanings come out. They make the invisible visible. We know that the sacred is everywhere. It speaks to us in the language our souls know. Wherever you have to be during this time, listen for the words that are not words. Choose the songs, the objects, the photos that honor your soul. And tend your altar. Now I'd invite everyone to unmute yourself, turn on your video so we can say the benediction together. The words are printed in your order of service and here in the chat. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage.
That's what is
good.
That's
good.
For no one evil
Turn
for
no
evil.
evil for evil.
Or evil.
Strengthen the
faint-hearted,
support the
support
weak,
the weak,
help the
Suffering.
Rejoice in beauty.
in beauty,
Speak love.
love with word and deed,
Honor.
All
all
beings.
beings.
Amen.